Hello and welcome to the Treasured Page. I'm Melanie and this is our quiet crafting space. I'm going to launch into it. Number 17 on the Junk Journal July challenge is Go-To Palette, and I have been agonising with this one because my go-to palette, it is whatever scraps present themselves to me at the time. That's my go-to palette. This is a go-to. It is the starting point of the coffee dye, tea dye, stained grunge, old vintage, antique ephemera, packaging papers and texturized feels of fabric, and this is my go-to. Here we go. These sort of things. This is me. This is my starting point, my go-to, my simple colour tones, my packaging papers, my old vintage ephemeras, and whatever that is, coffee dyed, lovely scrunch stuff, and vintage things, and you know, the things, the lovely floaty bits of old scrap of fabric, random butterflies flying in at me. That's my go-to. So that's my starting point. Here I have, that's jumping in. We'll have to find a place for that. That is, I'm not sure, but they're stamps. I don't know what country they're from. If that means anything to anybody, let me know. Absolutely beautiful. I think those are Cosmo flowers. Really nice. So we'll find something for that. Right, I've got two envelopes. This one has been dyed, ink dyed, and this one has been tea stained. Those are the two effects that you can achieve. Yes, it's got my name on it, and it is a electric bill, or was. It's half of the envelope. Okay. So these are the effects that you can get by spraying on the vintage photos and some grey colour oxides, and this is the colour that you get just using what was left of your tea bag, black tea. And then this was the same. This was a tea or coffee stained paper, very lightly stained and then stamped. But what happens if we just place one on top of the other? It's no longer an electric bill, it's something more interesting. So let's use that maybe as a starting point. Let's see where that takes us, with just for one moment. Let's take an electrical bill and put a scrap that we've made the other day just by, I wasn't even doing that, was I? I was making tissue paper. So these are secondary stamps. This was an old stamp-off sheet, as I call them. I have a sheet to one side, and I usually do a secondary stamp when I'm getting involved in doing stamping. And therefore, that is not wasting the ink, and it's just a spare scrap. Now going down. So I think my go-to palette is certainly neutrals to begin with, and then building up to other things later on. That was good. Oh yes, so I've stuck the envelope down through my dyeing process of getting the paper wet and spraying it with water. The original gummed envelope fold has sealed itself shut, and it's really sealed itself shut. So I'm just going to go with that. I'm going to leave it as a sealed shut envelope, and then I just got a pair of scissors in the absence of having a letter opener, which would have been perfect for this. Slice the envelope open with my scissors like that, like a letter opener would have done back in the day. And because I put a little bit of ink spray in there as well, it's got that yellowed, aged effect, which is not really, it's just fossilised amber ink spray from Tim Holtz. But, you know, it now looks really, really old. So we've got two things there. Oh, and the other thing I've got is this. Now, this says April 15th, 1925. And we can't really read much else on this because it's a little bit, well, obviously very old, isn't it? So for 100, is it 100 years? Yeah, it must be nearly 100 years. What I can make out here is concrete shop, concrete bricklayers. So that is a merchant's bill, isn't it, for bricklaying, concrete construction. And there is where the bill would have gone on a spike in the past. You know, on a spike. Shoop, done. That one came in, that one was paid. No problems. What did they have? Well, it looks to me, I can read materials, and that is 5. It could be a 0 or it could be a D, in which case it's 5 pence. And that, I think, says lime. So they were buying concrete ingredients for building something in April 15th, 1925. So that's interesting. So there's these sort of things that I like. Those are my go-tos, mainly for inspiration. And let's just go with the scrap busting for now. Now I could go more modern, or I could stick with the vintage. And if I'm doing that, I need to pull my vintage bits and bobs out that I can see, such as music paper. And I like to team music paper with rusticy bits that have a texture to the paper. And I like to put scraps of fabric, if they make sense to what's being put down there. And I just find the whole thing becomes very, very interesting when I do something like that. To me, anyway. Don't know what anyone else thinks. I get things like that. A stamped B might work, and a little sample of fabric snippet there. And you know, maybe if we're thinking about 1920s, an image of that era might be brought in. So just with a few simple bits, I can maybe work with that as my go-to. So that idea in mind, it gives me a seahorse. This snippet of map is from England, and it's talking about Sussex. Well, Sussex is at the lower part of England, and it is surrounded by the sea, so that makes sense if we're going to try and make sense. This feels like it could be a rag paper, certainly a thick paper. So this is an old map. It was damaged. And maybe I don't really like that line because it's sort of coming in a bit too much. And I just sort of like, I don't want it to be half, I want it to be a third of what I've got going on here. And I just want this edge. There's quite a lot of light colour there, so I'm just going to tear that down. So come over, make sure I've got that number 3 in there, I like that. And just not have it straight, but sort of something a bit like that. Maybe not that bit on the end. And see if I like that somewhere. Maybe there. Maybe there. Maybe I want this over here, echoing it like a border. So yeah, my go-to is just my scraps, just sort of playing around. But maybe this lady liked Sussex and the seaside. Maybe we want something else down there that brings in a little bit more interest. See, she's very decadent, isn't she? She's enjoying the roses. That looks like a rose to me. Okay, all right. So the go-to is the story that I can conjure up about something. So she likes roses, this one, because she's... Well, she probably doesn't. She probably likes whoever she's looking out at. Maybe her friend, or a man, or... I don't know. Something. She's having a nice time anyway, isn't she? So She's in a garden, and we've got seahorses, so she's by the sea. We've got a small sort of botanical image there. I don't think I'm going to find anything in my scrap tray. So I'm wanting, oh, I might do. I might have something. Let's have a look here. What's all this? Oh, and even this sort of business could come in, because she looks a little bit fancy, doesn't she? Maybe that would work. Vintage music. Oh, that's quite fun, because that tells you part 2 of the play, and she's definitely an actress, isn't she? And we don't have to have the seahorse. The script behind it's enough. Oh, that's quite fun. I like that. That's sort of speaking to me. We've got a little bit of that. Right, where are we? Maybe with the West Sussex Players or something like that. Maybe this is an amateur of dramatics, although she's probably very famous, and you might know who she is, but I'm not sure I know her name. But she's definitely a movie actress from the black and white films. What have I got here? I don't really like this paper, but there are a few bits in there that might be nice. So we've got some roses there. Okay. All right. So I've got my actress on this paper here. Okay, I'm going to glue that down. I wanted something a little bit more like that. I think I like that pink. Where's my scissors? I like that pink. It just reminds me of the green of the rose melting in to a beautiful pink on a beautiful bloom of a flower. Yes, and it's the similar colour tone to that, so there we are, that's working. This is just sari silk. I say it's just sari silk, it's not really, is it? It's a piece of fabric that's been dyed, hand dyed by some very clever person that wasn't me. And I've managed to get hold of it. So I'm going to just put a little bit of Fabri-Tac on the side here. And I think I'm going to put this down here, come in a bit with that. Stick that down. And then my pretty rose-like fabric will come here. So yeah, my go-to palette is what's in front of me, and usually old ephemera. So it is that tea stain, coffee stained style that starts off a spark, definitely. There we go. So I feel like I've answered the brief. I don't really think I need any more explanation, really. What's your go-to palette? It's very difficult, tricky to answer, I think. But if you like coffee dyeing and going for the vintage, then your colour palette is going to be neutrals and browns and beiges and natural colours and bringing in muted tones. Well, I love to work in muted tones. I think that's just calming and natural. It's nostalgia. Yeah. So I think that's great. So this is a piece of music paper, but on the other side it's actually starting to tell you all about who was in the chorus. It's quite fun. A little scrap going down. So I hope everybody's okay, and I hope you're well and enjoying a little craft in your crafting spaces. Hope that they're quiet and calming, and that you are able to just take some time for yourself, to take a deep breath and just relax into it. Okay, who's moved the hole punches, please? Where have they gone? Okay, we're going for a 1-inch hole punch, and I'm going to see about this rose here. Obviously had the same idea for something else and used it. I'm going to use that. Yeah, so I've been quite interested in using circles in the last couple of days, so that's been quite fun. A nice way to use up scrap bits when you don't like the whole picture, or it's too busy, but you just chop out a little bit. So yeah, I think she looks quite sweet there. I think I might like to sew round it, but the problem is I've got the pocket there, so I could open it up at the bottom. Let's use my makeshift envelope opener and just roughly open that up. So we've now got that. This will be the bit that will be stuck down to the page, so we haven't really got to worry about that. But I'm going to put her at a jaunty angle. I think she might like that up there. And I think I might even be able to sew around that bit. But I am just going to just do a line of glue. I won't be sewing over that bit, but it just keep it in place. And the same with the circle, and we'll just have that up there. So that's quite fun, isn't it? And then I'll come back and we can decide what we want down here, and again maybe something on the bottom so that it'll look like that with something there or something there. Okay, so I've sewn around here with a pink thread which just mirrored what was happening here and this colour here, so the pink seemed to work quite nicely. I've gone round in a haphazard circle around there just to add a bit of interest, and I didn't want it neat, I didn't want it to be precise in any way, so it doesn't matter that we've come off there at all. I think that just adds to the character, the homemade sort of junk journaling vibe that we get. You don't need to be perfect, there are no rules, everything's fine. And then the other idea is that I saw these right at the beginning. These are vintage stamps and they're really unusual because they're a triangle. Maybe I'd like that there. I'm going to just tear this one apart. That's the nicer of the two. So I'm going to use the one with the rip in, the junky bit. And I haven't got much imagery going up there, so it's not very interesting. So I could have that there. So it's certainly the right colours. Whether it's too much, whether that's too much. Do I like it? I'm not sure. So I'm very happy with this bit, but we don't have to have that. We could just cut that down, or we could forget that idea and do a cluster with those for something else, which could be quite interesting. Yeah, I think that wants to be a cluster, doesn't it? And we're just adding a few bits. So cluster is just the bits that you didn't use. Yeah, sure. Tinker with that in a minute. So we've got that. It's coming back to this. Let's do one idea at a time, otherwise we'll get confused, and we don't want to be confused. Doesn't take much to confuse me. I like the bee. Perhaps the bee wants to be up there. Let's see. So let's. Oh, it's that time of day, and I've got a cup of tea here, which is nice. Lovely. Nice bee in our garden. Let's have that. Maybe ink round the edge. Could do. Could bring out a different colour ink. Nice pink or something. And then we'll just roll that over. Just calming down. Having a nice little time here. No need to get stressed about the bee. Oh, do I want that lined up, or do I want him? I don't know if I want him there. Yep, I think there's good. I'm not happy about the top there, I'm not happy about the side, I'm not happy about the bottom, so we need to think of some other ideas. Washi tape is a good go-to. Lace is a good go-to if I can find it. So I tidied up my lace and then I can't always find it. Got some vintage bits here. This has got a pink tone to it. Could have a bit of that. That's quite a good one. And then I've got a little bit up here which I've sort of saved for tags. So that's quite pretty, isn't it, down there, if we want a bit of lace. I know we all like a bit of lace occasionally. Not everybody, it's not for everybody, but a little sometimes. How about something completely different? Oh, I don't know about yellow. I think that's a step too far because we've got the pink and I don't want to detract from those beautiful colours. So it really does want to just be something more plain. So we'll say no to the yellow. I've put these on sticks. I've got a little organising video if you want to see me do the sticks. It's a bit wide, isn't it? I like this edge. So I might just want to put that there as a little bit of intrigue. So I could put that on there like that. And then we could have the lace on the top of that. So that sorts out the bottom edge with a simple piece of lace. And then we just need to think about something on the side. And do the lace. And tuck that over so we cover up that raw edge. And now we don't know that it's there. I'll just put my finger on it for a second while that sets, and then I want to just cut that bit off there with my fabric scissors. Good, another scrap. Right, so lace is done, we've done that. Have a little look at the washi tape situation. I've got some here. This has got some pretty pinks on it. That's nice. It's got a boat on it. I don't want the boat, but I like the pink and the I think they're lilies. That's pretty. So we're going to have that up there. That actually sorts that edge out, doesn't it? Yeah, why not? That's all right. Go with that. And I'm just pulling it back because it's not very sticky. We don't want anything peeling up on us. Now maybe I like that. I don't know if this is too controversial, but I'm going to tear off that. And I'm just going to have the vintage image as a fragment. That's it, that's all it wants. It didn't need the whole thing. I know. I've ripped up a vintage stamp and it looked beautiful as a triangle. But now it's a snippet, isn't it? It's a snippet. It's not overpowering. You get that it's a stamp. You see the perforated edge. We've got the bee, we've got the flower, we've got the lady. That's all ties in with what's happening down there. I knew I wanted it. It's just too big. I've got this for a... Well, this is going to be our snippet that we'll do over here. So let's keep that in mind. Let's have a bit of that. And then we've got a matching sort of a set thing. So a snippet is sort of off-centered bits of paper where you just sort of line them up like that. Something a bit stronger behind it. And then possibly sew through the middle of it. I'm going to sew through and we'll see what we come up with. Okay, back from the sewing machine. I just did a straight zigzag, not very straight, but I did a zigzag stitch just through the centre there, nothing complicated, and just tethered all of that together. So this sort of makes sense, and it could even, I could tear that bit away and it could go up there, but that's not really what I wanted. I just wanted them to work as a set, maybe on a page or on a double spread. And when I was over there, I found this scrap of fabric as well, which all works within the colours. That was just there, so I'm wondering whether I might like that. Whether we want a little bit up there. What does that look like? Because I could fold it over. It could be on an angle. What do you prefer? I think that sort of boxes everything in a bit, but I do feel something should go up there, but I think I like that there. And now not liking this raw, this straight edge, I just want a tatty edge there. So I'm tearing that straight cut edge off. A little bit of ink just to age up the edge. Clusters are so much fun, really, really are. So I think I like that on there. I'll only see that bit, so I could cut a top bit off and reduce the bulk. That's certainly what you would do if you were sewing it. So let's just do a bead of glue along there. I think I like the frayed edges, so, and I don't necessarily want it straight, so I'll do it at an angle, and then I get more of this. Off centre it. How do we do that? Yep, that's fine. Don't think about it too much. The straight edge there was bothering me when I was thinking about that, so all I do is just pull a few of those threads away to fray. The other thing I've got is just to sort of finish it off and make it make more sense, or make more of it. I can put a button there. That's quite nice, but it's a bit plain. It's just a shirt button. I've got a wax seal that we were doing the other day with a little bird on it. That ties in with the colours. So that might want to be up there as well. Quite like that. Maybe that's quite a nice idea. Or, secret option number 3 is a flower. I don't want to cover up the flowers there, but I do quite like that. And if I do that, then it might make sense to do it here. Oh, that's nice, isn't it? Maybe she wants 2 because she likes flowers. And one over here. They've got little pearls in them. They're quite sweet. Little paper flowers. Stick those down. So I think that's sort of where I started my junk journaling, learning like that, doing things like that, getting lost in the nostalgia of all of that sort of thing. Certainly when I was finding lots of ephemera and things from my grandmother's collectible bits that she had. And, you know, that my grandmother lived until she was 97, so we're not in any sadness here. She had a wonderful, full life. The lady didn't even stop working until she was in her 90s. So, you know, it's not a sad thing. It was an absolute celebration of her life, and we're still doing it today. So isn't that wonderful? Isn't that wonderful? I'm just going to put that down. But yeah, she would have approved of this sort of thing. Definitely put a little flower on it, and the lovely image of the lady in the garden there with the flowers, and then echoed up there and brought the colours in, and the bees in the garden, and the, I think it's lily pads on a pond sort of thing. A little bit of map for a vintage feel. And the more you add, the more interest you bring in, but you also need to know when to stop, and that is interesting because we've got a lot of little bits of colour there. We've got interest there. I like the thread hanging off of it, that adds to it. And so how that would look on a page is that this is quite nice to jazz up a very, very dull page. Let's see if we can find what I mean. These are dull pages. And I shall put that there. That's perfect, isn't it? And then we've got 2 pockets there. But first I'll need to glue that shut to make my pocket. So we just put a glue bit there. So that's that done. And then this goes in here as my go-to palette. So when I'm feeling like I just need to sit down and do and not think, that's the sort of thing that I might choose to do. And it's wonderful because I love the nostalgia of that and the old black and white films. And I just put that little extra tracing paper up there. It looks like an old vintage find. Little bit of overhang, no problem. Then that all ties in with our funny parrots, and this would then go up there and the whole thing becomes one piece. So I'm going to do that. Free up that thread so we see the thread, and just I don't know whether we could have it as a tucky bit, so I'm not going to put yeah, I've put it in all the places there. Doesn't matter if it peeps out, and we could tuck something under there because I've stuck it down the sides. So we have options with that one. I might just, this is a bit fragile, this map piece here, so I'm just put a bit of glue there. I think that's interesting. And then what I don't like is that. Take the scissors to that bit and get rid of it. Then we won't see it. And then I've also got this embellishment that I made a while ago. You may have seen it when I was doing stamp clusters, and I love that. And maybe these two were friends. Let's say they could have been. Maybe there was a little letter that she received, and it was all a very long time ago. And then in there, because this has been opened properly with a letter opener, we will want some paper in there. For a bit of vintage writing paper. Let's just make sure we've got that. There we go. And then that tucks in the top like that, or it could go there as a secret surprise. And that is what I'm going to do there for my vintage go-to, my go-to palette of worn, torn, tattered and fabulous. I hope you've liked that, and I hope you've relaxed and found some inspiration of how you can put black and white images. It's nice to sew them down, but you could stick them as well. Add some lace, fabric, washi tape, all of the above. And this is tracing paper that's been dyed with a tea or a coffee stain, and adding in vintage fabrics and doilies which you can dye. I did find these as yeah, that was a nice find from a shop where they were selling them for parties. So that's a modern doily in a nice colour for a vintage tea party. So there we go. And you could dye the little flowers as well, and we could just sort of age them a little bit so they're not so stark white, and then that brings that back into that oldie worldy era, doesn't it? And 1930s, 1920s, 30s, 40s, sort of my colour palette I quite enjoy to dip into. Okay everybody, well, I've had fun and I hope you have too. So above everything else, just slow down and make crafting time for you. Bye bye now.